So the case was first put before a Beaufort County grand jury. Now, most thought this was just going to be an open and shut case. She murdered a guard and escaped. The end. But of course, there was a lot more to the story, and most of all, like the scene of the crime. As one officer put it at the time, he said that Clarence's body was found in like a very quite odd way. Clarence was only dressed from the top up, so he had no pants on. He was lying face down on her bed or her bunk. I also read somewhere that he was laying face down on the floor, but either way, he was laying face down. Joanne's nightgown was found on the floor of the cell. Her bra was hanging from the cell door, and then under Clarence's body was a torn woman's bandana. But a huge piece of evidence, and I think, and a lot of people thought, the most important piece of evidence was actually from the autopsy. On the autopsy, it showed multiple stab wounds, but also it showed that there was semen on Clarence's leg. Semen. So the medical examiner actually reached out to the court and said that he was willing to go before the jury to explain how semen actually showed evidence of sexual activity. Therefore, she's probably not lying. But for some reason that I could not figure out, the jury declined to hear from him. I was like, why? I don't know. Well, along with the semen, there was one stab wound that proved to be fatal, and the rest were defense wounds that were located in a way, showing that someone, in this case, Joanne, was fighting back. Like there were signs of a struggle, defensive wounds. Meanwhile, Joanne's defense team used social science to get a fair trial because they knew that they were not going to get a fair trial. Okay, this had been all over the news. People are just discrediting Joanne. So they needed a new approach to jury selection. And at this time, nobody was really doing this. So again, this is like groundbreaking on multiple levels. So Joanne's team did surveys comparing the attitudes of white people towards Black people between Beaufort and Pitt counties. Turns out about 2/3 of respondents in both counties believed that Black women were more sexual than white women. And also, many believed that Black people were just more violent than white people. In the end, the survey results showed that both counties were pretty racist, but it seemed stronger in Beaufort County. So with this data behind them, Joanne's team, they petitioned to have her trial moved somewhere else where it was, so she could have a fair trial. So it ends up getting approved. So Joanne's trial moved to the state capital, Raleigh, and with this, they felt Joanne would be able to have a fair trial. So luckily with this, they get their new trial, right? And in Raleigh, the jury was split evenly between Black and white jurors. So this at least is off to a better start. But Joanne's defense team, they weren't fully focused on the jury. Joanne's case was getting more and more attention. And with that, her team was also trying to make sure that her case was staying like front and center in the media spotlight and that people were talking about it. The Free Joanne campaigns were so successful that Joanne's defense team were able to get the first-degree murder charge reduced to a second-degree murder charge, which essentially meant that the death penalty was now like off the record. Finally, the proceedings began. The state had brought in like a handful of prosecutors. One specifically was named Lester Chalmers. He was assigned to this case as a prosecutor. Now, it was said that Lester, anyone named Lester, first of all, red flag, but Lester would wear a tie in court that had the KKK sign on it because he actually represented the KKK. So he was brought in to, work this case. So it was just like not off to a good start there, right? But the prosecution's strategy was to really push this idea that Joanne was a hypersexual woman, and essentially like they were going to show that she was a slut, a floozy, Oh, and that was essentially what they were going to focus on. And they had one theory that they were just going to freaking present to the courts. Joanne wanted to get out of her cell, so she lured the man in, she stabbed him, and then she escaped. Bada bing, bada boom. They were thinking, that's it. That's exactly what it is. It's nothing more than that. That was their strategy.